Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk McKnight, author of The Voices of Hockey, Broadcasters Reflect on the Fastest Game on Earth, and coming to you from the Pacific Northwest, 2,454 miles from Little Caesars Arena. Now, speaking of the dojo, the Red Wings are returning to action tonight at Little Caesars Arena to take on the Nashville Predators, a team against which the Red Wings have had some recent success. In fact, I feel like a lot of the league has found some recent success against the Nashville Predators. Before last season, they picked up Stamkos from Tampa Bay and Marchessault from Vegas. And there was a lot of high hopes going there in the Music City, but they did make the playoffs last year, and they're off to just as bad a start this year. So on paper, the Red Wings, coming off that loss Monday night against the Devils, are looking to right that ship pretty quickly and get the 2 points against the Predators. And they have another home game after that before they start to have several road games in succession. So always good to get the home games and get the home wins if they can. So we're hoping for that tonight against the Predators. And as we look at tonight, we're reminded that today is Wednesday. Now, Wednesday in the workforce is often referred to as the hump or hump day. And so what I want to do is introduce a new segment today called Over the Hump. Now, Over the Hump, emphasis on the question mark, is where we'll look at a theme or an area in which we've discussed in the past that the Red Wings perhaps may be struggling, and dissect it a little bit to see, are they improving upon it or are they not? Now, while the team was in the midst of a 3-game losing streak, the special teams was something that was exploited very strongly by the other teams against the Red Wings. Now, they're 4-5-1 in their last 10. And of those last 10, the first 3 of those were the 3 losses on the road against the Vegas Golden Knights, and then at home against the Rangers and the Blackhawks. Now, if you take those 3 out of the 10, you got the Red Wings at 4-2-1 over their last 7. Now, looking at those last 7, you got 6 for 22 on the power play. Now, on the penalty kill, even more impressive, they're 15 for 19. And those 4 in which the other team did score a goal on their power play, the Red Wings had won all 3 of those games. So not only did they, really solidify themselves special teams wise, but in the times where they did let it slip a little bit, the rarer times, honestly, 15 for 19 is a lot better percentage than what they had been putting out, especially over that 3-game losing streak. So the fact that they were still able to come away with a W in those games, even when they did allow a goal on the penalty kill, definitely something to look back on and to take with them moving forward. Now, going from talking about a team moving forward to a player moving forward, I like to shift the attention to Showtime. Patrick Kane, in the loss Monday night against the Devils, he still had an assist, so he still got another point. He is now at 1,355 in his career, and that is only 19 points shy of Mike Modano for most all-time for an American-born player. Now, since coming back from his 9-game absence due to his upper body injury, Patrick Kane has scored 7 points over the 9 games he's been around. His shots on goal are 27. That's actually a pretty low number for somebody like Patrick Kane. He's at 495 goals in his career. So the fact that basically he's averaging maybe 3 shots on goal over each game, over a 9-game period, doesn't really breathe of Kane. He does have 6 assists. He does have 1 goal. So, he's still contributing. He's still out there with DeBrincat and Seider kind of having that connection going. And he's still obviously proving effective. But like I said, it's not like him to not be shooting a lot. And so we're going to see over time if those numbers start to go up a little bit more, maybe perhaps bring him up a little bit more as far as the points go too. Another thing to improve on is his plus minus. So since coming back from the injury, he's at -6. Another thing that maybe a statistic not quite familiar to somebody like Kane, but his time on the ice has really fluctuated a lot, and it hasn't been high in the teens like it usually is, or even in the 20s, low 20s. It's basically fluctuated between just under 13 minutes to just under 21 minutes. So we'll just have to see how things go for him moving forward and see how long it takes him to actually get that record set by Madonna and to really solidify himself as the, what we all kind of believe him to be as the true U.S. born, GOAT as far as hockey goes. Now, that is talking about a veteran, but now I want to shift the focus to a rookie on the Red Wings in today's spotlight. We're talking about Emmett Finnie, or as I like to call him, Finns. And Finnie, some things to think about. Kid's only 20 years old. He's from Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. He was drafted in the 7th round, 201st overall in 2023. This season, his only season, he's a rookie, he's got 5 goals and 6 assists. One thing to also think about is the mentality. Now, when we look in the mental game, especially for a rookie, sometimes you get those penalty minutes starting to accrue. And when those penalty minutes start to accrue on you, you start to get it in your head. Well, he has 0 penalty minutes so far this season. That is very positive, especially 23 games in. His plus or minus is 3. When you consider that somebody like Patrick Kane is -6 over his last 9, the fact that Finn's is plus or minus is +3, obviously very solid note. Kudos to you on that. Now, some of the other things, the behind-the-scenes action that should be taken into consideration, he does have 11 points, like I already mentioned, but he has 14 blocks and 45 hits. Maybe perhaps people don't pay enough attention to those stats, but they all come into play and really are discussed and thought about when it comes down to the grit and late in the season and whether or not a team is middling, floundering, whatever word you want to use for struggle. They'll start to look at that. What's our plus or minus? What are our hits looking like? Are we getting out blocked? Are we getting out hit? What's our face-off percentage? Those kinds of things go a long way. And so for Finns to be at 14 blocks and 45 hits, wow, extrapolate that. That's looking like 180 hits on the season for a rookie. Dude, talk about really just making a difference. Now, we've talked enough about Finns. We've talked enough about the young crowd. I want to talk about the old crowd. Now, since there was no game last night, there was no post-game press conference, time I used to like to introduce my favorite segment of the show, the No Cap Recap. Now, I talked a little bit about Mikko Rantanen and his hit on Alexander Romanov in the Islanders-Stars game last week. Now, a lot of people may not realize, I'm sure they do though, is that Patrick Waugh is the coach of the New York Islanders. And any Red Wing fan can recognize that name from his time with the Avalanche. Obviously made a name for himself and a career for himself, starting out with the Montreal Canadiens and winning 2 Stanley Cups before going over to the Avalanche and winning another 2 Stanley Cups. But any Red Wing fan who was paying attention during Bloody Wednesday knows that Patrick Waugh is just as ready to jump into the skirmish, even as a goaltender, as the rest of the team. So when Rantanen, who actually Waugh, before coming over to the Islanders, was in the upper management, was kind of in the box, even was a coach for the Colorado Avalanche. So he was there when Rantanen came to the team. So this is somebody he actually knows and is familiar with. And when Rantanen hit Romanov, Kane was heard over several broadcasts. I'm going to edit this, but he says, "You're not going to frickin' finish that game," talking about when the Stars go to play up at the Islanders, on the road. He was obviously very heated. He was very upset. So I'm going to go to his post-game press conference that night, and we will then run it through the AI slang translator in tonight's No cap recap. All I'm going to say is when you see the number, you have to lay off. Everybody knows that. You don't go through the guy. I'm proud of the way our guys handle it afterwards. No one was happy to see someone get hurt like this. To me, it's disrespectful for our guy. I was in Colorado when he was drafted there. It's not his style, but at the same time, that should not be part of our game. Now, throwing Patrick Waugh's words into the AI slang translator and coming out the other side. Now, if you can really imagine Patrick Waugh talking like this, here we go. All I'm saying is when you clock the number, you got to chill, bruh. Everyone knows that, you feel? You don't just bulldoze the dude. Mad respect to our guys for how they bounce back after that. No cap. Nobody wants to see a player get murked like that. To me, it's straight up disrespectful to our guy. I was in Colorado when he got drafted there. That ain't his style, but for real, that ish shouldn't be part of the game. And I agree with Patrick Waugh about that ish shouldn't be part of the game. In fact, I feel like Comfer, after his hit on Nico Hischier on Monday night, may be a victim to the aftermath of Rantanen's hits, both on Romanoff and on Coronado in Calgary. So, obviously, people are on watch. People are getting put on blast for their decisions on the ice. They're getting put on blast off the ice. Patrick Waugh is a solid competitor, always was, even as obviously as a player, but even as a coach and upper management and all the roles he's taken since hanging up the skates. So, in light of all that, going back to the Red Wings, here we go, hoping for a win tonight against the Predators, hoping to get ourselves back in the W column, getting those 2 points, maybe put ourselves back in first place in the Atlantic Division, having a little bit of a leapfrog over the Lightning like they leapfrogged us with their win Monday night and our loss. So until then, it's LGRW from the PNW, folks. This is Kirk McKnight, and you've been watching Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch.